Okay, let's just start. Okay.
Yo, greetings everybody. This is episode one of the political animal. I am Wesley Pepper, an animal from South Africa. I am an
Hi.
artist. And, all of a sudden, I feel animalistic.
Yeah. Well, welcome.
Yeah. And there's Mustafa Junado and Afolabi. Yeah, man.
So thank you very much. And also, we want you to check out the Art Lexia by Wesley. He has the latest one that he had. Well, he's had two, but the one that I remember was the one with the lady who does some great poetry. Check out the poetry on the Art Lexia. It's really good stuff. Afolabi, you can speak to the poetry. How did you like it?
Oh, it was wonderful. It was really nice.
Yeah.
As a science student in ISL, I did literature too. But I have a flair for appreciating works of art.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, and I liked her concept of quantum poetry. Yeah, it was wonderful.
Yeah, man.
And I do a lot of writing too myself.
Yeah. So I'm Mustafa Junado. I'm a political animal, but I'm in the capital of political animals, Washington, D.C. And the greatest political animal in the world, Biden, who is dropping bombs on Israel, which is not a joke. I'm actually serious. These guys are political animals. But without any further deep talk, let's get into the savagery. So Kunle is here too. Kunle Williams. So let me quickly. Afolabi is in Lagos, and he's an IT specialist. Very soon he'll be dropping his own stuff. He does designs and things. Like he'll drop his tag and everything. And we have Kunle Williams, who's an esteemed lawyer from one of the
just in time.
Yeah, just in time. You're dressed up like a basketball player. You're about to go savage on America.
Yeah, wife beater.
You're wearing a wife beater, but don't beat her.
Yes.
Don't beat her.
Yes.
All right. So let's get started. So, time is of the essence.
I need a minute.
Oh yes, you'll be okay. So we're going to start with Afolabi, who's in Lagos. Afolabi, you're going to start off by talking about an issue with in Nigeria about the security issues and violence tied to what's happening with the Ija and the Urhobo in Delta State, killing and the military tries to jump in, and military people get killed, and the military people strike back. So let's get started.
Mustafa, thank you very much. Viewers from around the world, you're welcome to our show.
Yeah.
Things are beginning to escalate in the oil-rich Niger Delta part of Nigeria, where 17 soldiers were actually given a state burial today, who were brutally and gruesomely murdered by some youth in some community in Delta State. It was a land dispute between two communities, and I believe the soldiers stepped in to try and, mediate between the two warring parties, only for them to be ambushed and brutally murdered. And as we speak, they're still trying to investigate who were responsible for this. But the soldiers themselves went on a killing spree, and they've also murdered a lot of innocent people. A lot of the people that live in this oil-rich part of Nigeria have been segregated and cheated for a very, very long time. The proceeds of their oil-rich land is what we boast about in foreign exchange. And if you go to that area, you see very little development of infrastructure. There's really nothing happening there. Yeah. So there's a lot of animosity.
Sorry, Afolabi, you're bouncing a little bit. Your screen is bouncing. Okay. I don't know if you're in a rocking chair or something.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's okay. Keep talking. Okay, so it's not a big deal.
Okay. So there's a lot of animosity because they feel the country benefits a lot from their oil-rich region, and there's no development of their areas, no schools, no healthcare, nothing to show for it. So there are always these intercommunal clashes every now and then. And so nobody really knows who is responsible for all this. I mean, some of the soldiers that were murdered were colonels. Some of them were captains. You can imagine high-ranking officers being ambushed, and their bodies were mutilated. So they're still trying to investigate what exactly happened to those people. But they were given a state burial today anyway, and they were awarded by our president. So tensions are still escalating in those areas. Some parts of those areas have been cordoned off. There are restrictions, there are curfews. Nobody really knows what's going on.
Yeah,
it's
around that area.
I worry a lot about this. Nigeria had an era of coups, and during that era of coups, you have military officers breaking away and breaking the law and doing as they wish. And you start having soldiers lying themselves to generals as opposed to swearing allegiance to the country.
Yeah.
before I get on to these gruesome murders, which are very, they're appalling, and nobody should, what's the word? Pardon them.
Condone. We shouldn't condone that.
Condone them. That's the word. Nobody should condone them. But the army itself, I worry about discipline. I mean,
yeah.
There's a case in Lagos. We have a food crisis, and there's a case in Lagos where the army just came like what do you call this thing? Like African warlords, and they raided this farm, 17 commercial farms, and they just kicked them off the land, beat them up, shot guns in the air. They started building stuff on them and threw them out with brute, violent force.
Yeah.
So I'm concerned that these acts and the reaction of the Nigerian army and these acts of land grabbing through violence, it's as if the Nigerian army is not really representing Nigeria always.
Can I ask you a question? Can I ask you a question?
It's representing generals. Now, my fear is this: if this is not checked, these people can stage coups.
For sure.
Yeah,
because if you're disobeying the laws and they're just using violence as a means to an end, and they get away with it, the next thing is to stage coups.
So here's what I would say. So you're coming from a different angle, because to me, not all coups are bad, as far as I'm concerned. The coups in Nigeria and in Burkina Faso were needed.
Yeah, but I don't think that's very accurate.
Like, not this kind of.
I'm not finished. Let me finish my point.
Those kind of coups.
Let me finish my point. Let me finish my point. Let me finish my point. Let me finish my point.
Hurting ourselves.
Let me finish my point. I'm not saying that a coup is what's needed for Nigeria, but what I'm saying is that not all coups are bad. That's all I'm saying.
Because I still don't agree.
Oh yeah, it's okay. Okay, we'll argue that on another point. But here's the thing:
the context.
Let me give you an example. Let me give you an
Burkina Faso.
That was justified because they got rid of France. That was the only option we had. And also, Castro did a coup in Cuba and saved Cuba. So to me, I will never say that a coup could be wrong. But most times it will be wrong. But we have to take each thing step in the context. In the context of Nigeria, where the soldiers are in discipline, a coup is not needed. But we do need martial rule in Nigeria if we can't do democracy the proper way. But what I was going to ask you, Kunle, when Babangida was president of Nigeria and when we had military and we had those guys, would you say that that was a bad regime compared to what we have now?
Well, from a personal experience, my grandfather was part of the people that was fighting for our to break away from military rule.
Okay.
And 3 weeks before Abacha died, we discovered that there was a plan to kill either my dad or one of his brothers to quieten my granddad.
That was the military,
Yeah, Onogoruwa was a friend of mine in law school. His dad was killed. Alex Ibru, my dad's best friend, he was almost assassinated. So there are lots of people around my friends and family that were getting it. I remember in law school, this was in the late 90s, 98, we were scared to talk about politics. We had to hide. And do you remember this guy, Lafat, the famous
I remember Lafat. Yeah, the photographer, yeah. I have some pictures by him when I looked young, when I was beautiful, yeah.
No, strange enough, we shared a room in law school. Me, him, and two other guys. We shared a dormitory because we had to go in that year. Abacha moved the law school from Lagos to Abuja. So if you wanted to become a lawyer, you had to go to the law school, and the law school was an hour's drive from the main city. So you had to live, and it was still a bush, so that you couldn't rent a fancy outhouse. You had to stay on campus. So you saw some big men stuck with the.
Well, here's what I would say, Kunle.
We were scared. Sorry, I didn't make my point.
Go ahead. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
We were afraid for our safety, and in speaking out, which is something that I really appreciate. I remember how people got drunk with joy. So from that point of view, with Abacha, that was scary. Babangida as well. Babangida was different from Abacha. Babangida had a stick and a carrot. Abacha just had a stick. That's the difference between the two of them.
So
Babangida was a competent leader, though. But I don't. But you can't really tell whether there's an improvement, because what infrastructural improvements were there? the amounts of monies that was being
Well,
stolen.
here's one thing.
And
Here's
then
one
we
thing.
found out that our oil has been stolen for over 50 years. They've been siphoning over 1 million barrels a day for 50 years. We just discovered that 6 months ago.
It's still being stolen, though. It's still being stolen.
Multi-billion-dollar pipeline.
It's still being stolen.
That's why suddenly their price has skyrocketed, because we caught them.
Yeah.
But they won't say anything in the news.
But what I would say, Kunle, is that there's a problem in Nigeria with corruption, whether it's the military or the democratically catalytically elected government. There's a problem with it. And this tends to be the case whether you have a democratic government or military. If you go against the power structure, you'll get killed. Same thing. People were killed in Cuba for trying to speak out against Castro. So the thing is that we have to look at the big picture and we want order. We need order right now. I'm not saying the military should come in, but what I'm saying is that democracy has failed miserably in Nigeria. It has failed miserably. And I go back to what Nigeria did and what Burkina Faso did by kicking France out. And to me, I'm glad that they have military rule there. I'm also glad that there's military power.
I'm not so sure military rule is a good idea, my brother.
Military rule is just a
I think a military rule in theory can sound this and that, but I think it's an awful idea.
They think violently first. Sorry.
You're right about that.
Military rule is no diplomacy, my king. In Africa, it's got a poor record of government.
Here's the thing: if you are in a state, so here's my argument.
You can't use a formula that has failed countless of times.
Yeah, but Wesley, you're not listening to me.
Ideology is going to change it.
You're not listening to me. You're not listening to me.
Those things don't.
Yeah, but this is Africa, and in Africa, the best regimes that have won have always been when the military had to step in. I'm not saying the military should always stay there, but sometimes the military has to step in, like they did in Burkina Faso. I dare you to tell me that what Burkina Faso did was wrong, to kick the French out, because they need the military, because right now they're not structurally okay.
Good idea,
Mustafa,
but installing that military rule is not a good idea.
All right, so here's my point. I am not in favor of military, but there is not in Nigeria, but in those countries like Burkina Faso, that's what you call state of emergency, where you need to have martial law.
What happened in Burkina Faso I can't call it a coup. What happened in Burkina Faso was basically what happened in Nigeria in 1960. They basically gained their independence. So I won't.
Yeah, but it came through the military, and then the military has
a popular movement.
Yeah, but it was still
behind it. It wasn't.
You're right.
The military come in a proper coup. The military don't give a damn what the people think. They're not interested in the people. They're interested in taking power. That was a popular movement. If the people resisted, there would have been a significant rebel.
And you're right.
There would have been a significant about people that have disagreed and said, no, we believe in this democracy. We believe in this. We're going to fight for it. But they said no. So that's not a coup. That's a revolution. Burkina Faso was a revolution.
It was a revolution. It was a revolution planned. It was a revolution planned and headed by the military with the
South
support.
Africa was the same thing. It's just how it was conducted. That was also a revolution. Those were revolutions.
Yeah, but the only difference is that the military was the one that provided the actual revolution, and they were backed by the people. So what I'm saying, I'm not in support of military, but military sometimes has to step in, bring in order, and then lead to a transition. So I'm not saying that. And also,
I won't call it the military because
without the military, without a strong military, without a strong military, no country can be sovereign. And the military. So what I'm saying is that
a military is all of a sudden such a point political tool. This is Africa, my brother. People here don't like.
Of course, this is Africa. Africa is known
for awful reputation.
Africa, military rule. You're saying this is Africa, of course. The strongest African countries have always been run by military. Egypt, Libya,
not South Africa.
South Africa is different because South Africa is a white settler nation. Nigeria was run mostly by military for years. Egypt, military. Libya, military.
And these are places run by the military. They had laws.
It wasn't because it was run by the whites. It was run by the whites. So South Africa does not need a military. I will even go on record as saying South Africa doesn't need a military intervention. It doesn't. I'm not even saying that Nigeria needs one. But what I am saying is that what happened in I'm so glad for the military for what they did in Nigeria and those countries because it was needed. I'm glad for Sankara. He was in the military. I'm glad for Cabral because first thing you do is you bring the power, like what's his name, Castro, because that's the only way to kick the whites out is through military. And then you talk about democracy. Then you talk about democracy. If people are coming into my house to kill my son, first thing I do is I take a gun and say, go to your room. I am the boss. Get rid of them. Then now they're gone. Okay, son, let's talk and
One
let's
of
build
the
a family.
biggest flaws of the Mandela
And I'm going down on record as saying,
was that
I'm
they
going down on
chose
record
the
as saying,
path
I'm going
of
down on record. I'm going down on record. I'm going down on record as saying I never mentioned that Nigeria needs a military overtake. Kule answered my question. How are things with Babangida? And what I will say is that democracy is failing right now in Nigeria. Nigeria is getting looted by the West, and there needs to be some type of intervention. But every country needs a strong military. That's why the US is number one. They have the best military in the world. Russia has the best military in the world. We need to have strong militaries. That's all I have to say. Now we're moving on to Kunle.
Hello?
In the 1950s and 60s with my parents, because they are saying and doing the same rhetorics as the people that fought against civil rights and Jim Crow and fought against ending colonialism and independence, and they're bleating the same words. It's as if we've made no progress in the last 74 years in the West when it comes to slavery, oppression, systemic racism, and white supremacy. It's like we haven't made any progress. It was just a festering boil under a surface. Because if you see some of those senators talking, oh, I don't want to hear what you have to say. If you have to say, people are saying they're concerned about children being killed. And then the senator turns around and says, your criticism makes you anti-Semitic. That there's no difference between being a Zionist and a Jew. Because although a Jew believes in God and a Zionist is atheist, apparently they're now the same thing.
Yeah. Also, a Zionist is Eastern European too. Yeah.
Yeah. If you criticize a Zionist, you're being anti-Semitic. If a Zionist murders somebody and you tell them it's wrong, you're being anti-Semitic. That's what it's down to, which is absurd. It's absurd. And then there's this hypocrisy that they're doing with Ukraine. I saw, was it one of the, not the Secretary of State, but one of the senior US politicians going, oh, it was crying, Ukrainian children. And then you see him ask.
Sorry, guys, I don't mean to cry. I don't mean to laugh.
About Palestinian children. And he's like, oh, war's hell, man, war's hell. And you're like, I actually thought I was back in the 50s, and they were, you don't forget.
We're still in the 50s. We're still in the 50s.
Was branded a terrorist.
Yeah.
Malcolm X, terrorist. Arafat, terrorist.
Mandela, terrorist. Mandela, terrorist. Mandela, terrorist.
IRA, terrorist.
Yeah.
Taliban in their own country, terrorist. Everybody that is fighting for their independence from white supremacy and G8 and Western, are terrorists. If you, as a black person in social media, you see it. A white person will tell you you're racist for saying that there's racism in America, and there's reverse racism, and all this, and it all comes back. It's all coming back like a bad dream, but Israeli people, I like to. They are human beings, surely. These people understand the value of all life. I can't judge a whole nation, but I'm shocked. And although they're criticizing Netanyahu, they're not criticizing him because of the war. They're happy about that. They're criticizing him for something else, for not getting the hostages out. But they're happy about the slaughter. They don't care.
Yeah. And also,
I can't believe a whole nation of people can think like this in the 21st century.
Okay, well, Kunle, think about this. In the U.S., 60 years ago, blacks in white southern towns and in the North, too, you could be hung for looking at a white lady. So what I'm trying to tell you is that nothing has changed. The United States had slaves. I don't care whether it's this or 300 years ago. Human beings have slaves and they think it's normal. So white supremacy has made us believe that if you're not white, then you're an animal. In Israel,
And it's not the white individual. Let me get something straight. It's not
well,
about
supremacy is
there
systemic.
are white people that
It's
see the bullshit
psychological.
and stand against it. It's the
psychological.
system itself. When people talk about reparations, they're not asking some white guy to dig in his pockets and give them the money back.
Yeah.
It's the government that made the laws that should make the reparation.
Okay, but can I have a point? In schools in Israel, they teach kids that Palestinians are animals. Same thing in America. Yeah. So that's why Israel is okay with what's happening now, because they've been programmed.
They're doing exactly what was done to them, they are doing to Palestine. And every time they ask, it's like, oh, well, because we suffered in Europe, that's why. And it's not Palestine that fucking put you in the gas chambers. Why are you taking it out on them? They didn't kill you in troops.
That's a psychological phenomenon.
But that's a justification.
For
genocide.
What I'm saying is that usually this works on the personal level. People who have been subjected to trauma and abuse, they perpetuate it also as a way of releasing the trauma. And that's what Israel is doing. But
when you start calling someone an animal, that's a mandate for murder. That's a mandate for murder, straight up.
Oh, yeah. And that makes it easy to kill people. Same thing in America. If you see a black girl go missing and you put it on TV, nobody cares. If you put a little blonde girl on TV, everybody, even the black people, cry. And they say, we need to help that little girl. Because white supremacy is a 600, 800-year-old psychological program, which has messed up the minds of blacks and whites, which is why we still have problems in countries like Nigeria, where we look to what Europe and the West does, because obviously they're more intelligent than us. And if you can't speak proper English, you're stupid. That's all I have.
It's actually created a parity between Biden and Trump. Trump is not necessarily the more evil person than Biden. Trump does not have blood on his hands.
Not even close.
Are like, oh, Netanyahu and Trump will get on. Remember that Trump's base is full of all these
the US politics
very anti-Semitic anyway. So I'm deviating into
your deviation is good. Keep going.
The world, because we look up to America as the world order. We look up to America, and I always believe that eventually, after they've tried everything else, America eventually gets it right. But
I never thought that. Like I think it was on the cards from America with hip hop. Like if you look at a band like NWA's music, if you listen to it carefully, like as much as the music was good entertaining, they're perpetuating a lot of violence. A lot of violence. That's like the early 90s, and that's like music. That's an acceptable medium. It is just by nature that this thing will eventually roll out, and not just perpetuate in a political movement, but like a form of culture. America's culture is across the world is violence, and like
the U.S.'s religion is violence.
We said that was
the American religion is violent. I was thinking about that.
Trump has 22 aircraft carriers,
but like
more than double the entire world put together.
That buffoon Trump is what America deserves. This country is unbelievable. Do you know what Obama did during his presidency? Bullshit.
Obama killed Gaddafi.
Products that they sold South Africa. They sold us like the worst form. And you know how black people love chicken. They ate that thing. If you look at people right now, a black man did that.
Wesley, that's racist. Wesley, that's racist. We don't love chicken. We don't like chicken. We like ganja.
You're right. Smoke the ganja, and then you eat the chicken.
I know Wesley is right.
A black man did that.
I think that we have to look to the governments, not the people, because look at the American people. And the American people that are variants with their government. It's like they've taken the red pill in the Matrix, and they've all seen a lot of bullshit they didn't see before. Because I guarantee you, most of them never heard of AIPAC before October 7th.
They've never heard of BRICS either.
Of what had happened. They didn't have a Nakba. They didn't know any of that before October 7th.
Yeah.
And now they know all of that, and they've got their governments out. The governments can't hide it because the technology now, even a
TikTok
can make a video with their phone and send it anywhere around the world in 2 seconds. And there's nothing you can do to stop.
Which is why
they'll go somewhere. They'll throw the phone to somebody who can send it, maybe airdropped over the border, and then go and to Egypt and then send it. So they can't hide what they're doing. The Palestinians are videoing everything.
Oh yeah,
So they can't lie and
So Kule, so Afolabi, we don't want to leave you lonely. What are your thoughts on what we've been saying? It's getting heated, but this is political animals, you know. What are your thoughts, Afolabi?
Oh, sure, absolutely. On one hand, if you look at the way Israel has responded, Israel continues to respond as a result of what happened during the Holocaust, and you can hardly blame them for the way they respond,
Now you
because
can't kill kids. You can't kill children. You can't kill children.
There's no excuse for murdering 14,000 children. I'm sorry.
it's too much.
You
I
can't do
agree
that.
with you, but
if it's turned into a
this is
monster
a race.
because of what's been done to you, then you should be put down.
I agree with you, Kule, but this is a race that would have been obliterated in the Second World War. They wouldn't have existed.
Who did it? Who did it? Who did it? Who did it? Who did it to them?
It's like saying Jeffrey Dahmer was abused
not
as
Hitler.
a child, so we should
Not
feel
Hitler.
sorry for him, despite
not
what
Hitler.
he did.
Hitler didn't do it to them. Germany and the West did it to them. And let me continue. The Nazi idea.
There's anti-Semitism all over Western Europe.
Yeah,
Don't let them
Western
deceive
Europe.
you that it was just
and in America too.
He won Man of the Year in Time magazine. So
Hitler was Man of the Year.
About?
He was Man of the Year in 1939.
1939, yes, Man of the Year. 1939, 3 years after they completely done all the evils they had done in the Jewish community.
And can I add one point?
Man of the Year.
Can I add one point?
So don't make it. Those people had I mean, what they were doing to black people in America in those days as well. It wasn't they didn't see it in the way we see it now.
It was just as bad.
They didn't see it as an abhorrent thing. They were just concerned because Germany wanted to take their countries and take their liberties. That's what they were concerned about.
Can I make 2 points?
Germany were preaching.
I want to make 2 quick points. The Nazi ideology started in the U.S. and Germany co-opted it. Eugenics and racial supremacy. I'm not making this up. This was a scientific study where the U.S. and the Nazis took it. The second thing I want to say is that after World War II, European citizens who were Jewish, they say, oh, no, you can't live here. So we're going to create a country for you and we're going to send you to Palestine. So what I'm telling you is that you don't want Ireland, so go to Palestine. It shows that the West is complicit.
What I don't understand about that is they'll come and say, oh, I'm going to kick you out of your house, Mr. Palestinian man, because I was given this land because the Bible says it gives me this land. Although I am atheist, I am relying on the Bible.
Yeah, they use the Bible. They use the Bible when it's
my state. Does that make any sense? Does that make?
And also to add to this,
I just want to finish
the Bible.
I love this. We're cross-talking each other now.
It's an abomination. It's an abomination in Judaism for the Jewish people to have a homeland before the coming of the second Messiah. It's an abomination. In the Torah said they shouldn't do so. So I don't understand
they're using religion when it's convenient for them.
But they're an atheist. How can an atheist use religion to claim land? That doesn't make any sense to me.
You know why? Because
I don't believe in God, but I'm going to use the Torah.
Kula, here's why it makes sense. Kula, here's why it makes sense. Because they're charlatans and they're just being strategic. And they know that it will appeal to Americans who are religious.
And they know Jesus will never hold them accountable. Religion don't hold nobody accountable. It's like can rape and plant.
Wesley, how much time do we have left? This is a crazy show. Now, so let's go back to Wesley now with South Africa, and we're going to continue this again.
No, like 9 minutes is not enough. Like 9 minutes is not clear enough. But
you want to do another record
as much as I can within I'll try to do it 5 minutes.
But we'll come back. Yeah, to your point. Yeah.
Do you know what I find unbelievable? Last year we had close to over 200 days of some load shedding bullshit where they cut off your fucking electricity and they say you must be okay with it. Right? We had we had unbelievable. It messed up businesses. Anyway, it was a nightmare.
No, you're right. Load shedding is correct.
Do you know what political we voting in a few weeks? Do you know what political parties are saying? We're gonna fix it. How stupid do they think? They don't give a reason. They don't give you a plan. They just say they're just perpetuating rhetoric. I can't believe how dumb 16 million people in this country is not everybody's that stupid, bro. We can't just if you have everybody's just using like a phrase. The phrase is maybe 5, 6 words. You understand? Then sort of like it's an entire ideology. The frustration of people is 5, 6 words. Come on, bruh.
We'll get back to you.
I have lost faith in politicians maybe over 10 years ago. I think everything politics hasn't succeeded anywhere in the world ever in 200 years of recorded history. It has never succeeded.
Yeah.
And somebody can argue that I'll tell it has failed. And I don't see why this shit will fail. We got elections.
I don't think it's failed in Cuba. I don't think it failed. I don't think it failed in Cuba.
Nah, bro. I'm sure
I don't think it didn't fail in Cuba. It didn't fail in Cuba. It didn't fail in Cuba. Cuba has a higher. You live in South Africa. You don't live in Cuba. Cuba has the highest. They have the highest. They have a higher lifespan than the U.S. They have a higher lifespan than Western nations. They have a higher literacy, and the reason they do is because they organize themselves politically. You think politics is about government? No, it's not. It's about action with people, collectivism. That's all I have to say.
See, I agree about Cuba with Mustafa. Let me explain. In Cuba was being ruled by.
Yeah, don't talk shit about Cuba. Nobody talks shit about Cuba.
He had gangsters. Basically, it was Cuba was basically the Las Vegas of that time, and that was where gangsters went to go and make their money. And it was the most most racist, apartheid, nasty, criminal cesspit of enjoyment that America used to use and abuse. So what Castro did was free them, and then when he took over these places, he actually offered to compensate America for the industries that they had built that they nationalized. Batista was a brutal dictator. It was no democracy before Castro came. So there's fully justified.
Yeah.
If you have a dictatorship that is being overthrown by another dictatorship, that's different from if you have a democracy or a fledgling democracy that's struggling to find itself that is being overthrown.
Yeah, and also the political actions of Mugabe who liberated Zimbabwe.
The interest of his people was amazing. And then he was part of the people that stood with South Africa for against apartheid. Him and Arafat. How can you be complaining about someone like that? He fought for.
I don't understand how he can complain about that. I don't understand.
Even Mandela said, "Castro is my friend."
Got family in
Castro is everybody's friend. And also one more person, Kool-Aid, one more person. Kool-Aid, one more person, Chavez in Venezuela. So I don't want to hear. Some politicians are good. Fuck that. Some politicians are good.
And then
you can't make a ridiculous statement like all politicians are bad. Wesley, you can't make a ridiculous statement like all politicians are bad.
They put these puppets in, and these puppets take loans from World Bank and IMF, and then they get backhanders, and then the money that the Western claim that they are giving as loans to these crooked politicians, they take it back to the West and put them in Swiss bank accounts, and then they die, and then they get their money back, so they don't give them a penny.
Okay, so thank you, Kool-Aid.
They're puppets. It's not that we're intrinsically bad. These people are under the control of Western puppets. So we have bad leadership. If you try to be a good leader in Africa,
Kool-Aid, thank you for your point. And Kool-Aid, I'm going to end on this.
Chap has faced there's been 4 or 5 assassination attempts on him already.
So Kool-Aid, I'll end with this. Nothing is perfect. But the main thing is that no matter who you are a political animal, and you have to take a side. And what I'm saying right now is thank Africa for what Burkina Faso did. Thank Nigeria. Thank guys like Cabral. Thank guys like Biko who fought for things. Thank guys like Castro. Thank guys like Chavez. Thank guys like Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. Because a lot of people think politics means voting. No, it doesn't. It means acting to make the polis better than it was before. And that's what we're pushing for. Now, the next session, I'm going to talk about Haiti, which as far as I'm concerned is an African country. And we're going to talk about Jimmy Barbecue Chevier. Sounds beautiful. Sounds French. We're going to talk about him. They're calling him a gangster or either a liberation leader. I think he's both. And we're going to talk about that. Thank you, everybody, for Political Animals. Stay tuned. We love it. This is the most powerful show coming out of Africa or anywhere. We tell the truth, whether it's brutal or not. Thank you, Kool-Aid, for your points. Beautiful. Thank you, Wesley. Thank you, Afolabi. So I have to go to work and I have to finish my wine. You know, because I'm a political animal and I got to make money.
And happy Easter.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. We'll be back in about 10 days. Thank you. Okay.
All right.